right. Hey, thank you. Thank you. Have a seat. Have a seat. Have a seat. Is everybody good? Okay. Hey, close the doors. Close the doors. In the back. Seriously. Somebody's going, really? Should we close the doors? Yes. Close the doors. They can come in. They can get in, but just close them. Then we have got people kind of leaning in going like that. And because I am, if you have, and how many of you you have seen me before, or this is your first time? One or the other? Because if we have been together before, you know I have close the doors. You know I have the ADD thing going on. And so with that, you know, I tend to look back at those open doors a lot. I'm scattered. I know I'm scattered. You don't have to tell me. My wife says that if I was 6 years old today, they'd be giving me some kind of medicine, and that's probably true. I think before we get going, I should probably tell you what I am not. I know that a lot of people would tell you what they are or what they do. I'll tell you what I'm not. You had John yesterday, right? So Maxwell was yesterday, and he did 5 hours. So I am going to do what I do today 5 times as fast as John did. I already talk fast. John's a friend of mine. I tease him a lot, and I always tell him there's a lot to tease there, a lot of material. I am not, let's see, I want to tell you what I'm not. I am not a motivational speaker. I've already heard this a couple of times just walking around, and people say, oh, there's the motivational speaker. And I'm just letting you know that I'm not one. I don't even like them myself. I kind of feel that motivation has a statute of limitations. You know, I kind of feel like if what you want is for somebody to tell you to have a good attitude, I'm probably not your guy, because I kind of feel like your mother should have told you that. I feel that motivation has a statute of limitations. There's an end to it. Okay, so I'm not really into encouragement. I'm into proof. I want to do something that's longer lasting, because you and I both know I could encourage you and that will last until the first crazy thing that happens in your life, right? I mean, I could encourage you and it will last until Monday, as long as I encourage you late on a Friday. But if I can prove something to you, that'll last forever. And I'm not talking about a mathematical proof. I'm talking about the kind of proof that you hear something that you hadn't heard, or you hear it in a way that you hadn't heard it before. And your response kind of inside, you kind of go, huh, wow, I never thought of that. Well, that makes total sense. Well, I don't know that I'll ever think of it any other way again. And see, when you have something proven to you, then you can take that proof and you can harness it to use it for whatever you want to use it for. Does this make sense? Because see, what I'm saying is that if I can manage to prove some things to you today, frankly, you ain't never got to see me again. I mean, I hope you want to, okay? But in reality, if I'm effective at what I do, if I prove some stuff to you, you ain't got to listen to my tapes every single day in your car and over and over. I mean, really, you ain't never got to see me again, because proof relies on truth. Something has to be the truth for it to be proven to us and have a long-term lasting value. Now, I'm going to let you know, if you haven't already suspected, I know that I'm kind of different, but I want to let you know that what you're going to experience here in the next little while is really different, because I'm probably going to kill some of your sacred cows, like right here in front of you. I'm going to take a lot of things that you believe and destroy them. because a lot of what we believe is just not true. And I'm talking about not just big things, I'm talking about little things. And see, motivational speakers are full of little things that sound really good, but they're not true. And this is part of why I have developed this angst. I mean, if you go on my website, you will not see that word anywhere. Here's one. People will not remember what you do, but they'll always remember how you make them feel. Sounds great. It's not true. I mean, think about it. They will not remember what you do. They will remember how you made them feel. Okay, why are they going to remember how you made them feel? Because of what you did. You think they're going to disconnect the two? Here's one. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's not true. It's not true, and I can prove it quickly. How many of you have teenagers, or you've dealt with teenagers? Okay, are teenagers people? Yes, they are. Do your children, do they know how much you care? Yeah, they do. Do they care how much you know? No, they don't. And pretty much neither does anybody else. Unless you can explain what you know in a way that lets people understand it in a proven way. Unless you can explain it in a way that people go, I never thought of it that way. Wow, that makes total sense. Now, I want to tell you something. I am not, I don't know what you already think of me. It's probably like you're wishing they hadn't closed the doors, so you can ease out. But I want to tell you something about me that I do not have as well. I do not have a gold medal. I don't have Super Bowl rings. I wasn't the hero of some national disaster that we all remember. I wasn't the president or CEO of some famous company. I'm just a dad and a husband and a friend and a business guy. And I figured out a long time ago what I was going to have to do if I was to have what we now laughingly refer to as my career, okay? I knew I was going to have to do something different. Now, people look at what I do and they go, what is it that he does? Is he a writer? Is he like a speaker? And I never wanted to say I'm an author, because I always think that sounds like you think you're a big deal. And I never wanted to say, well, I'm a speaker, because speakers wear suits and have points. And so it took me a while to figure out what I do, where my value is for other people. And here's what it is. I'm a noticer. Okay, I'm a noticer. I may be the first professional noticer that you ever met. But when God was passing out talents, I didn't get the cool ones. See, I can't run fast. I can't sing great. But I notice little things that make a big difference in people's lives. That's what I do. I notice. And so this is why, if you look at my client list, in the past few years, I can't do that. I can't. Here. Let's do it like this. Okay. So if you look at who I work with, it's kind of odd, because I work with corporations and I work with teams. I work with special operations with our military. I work with our intelligence community. Worked with special operations for NATO for a while. If you're a college football fan, I actually have my hand in the last 9 college football national championships. I worked with Ryder Cup, Solheim Cup, a bunch of different stuff. And remember, I'm not a celebrity. I'm like a kind of a semi-normal person. And so it's what I figured out that has allowed me to do that. 4 different presidents of the United States addressed Congress not too long ago. It didn't help. But here's what I do. Here's what I knew I was going to have to do. I was going to have results. That was it. I couldn't help people feel good and motivate people into something that wouldn't feel the same way the next week. I had to actually have results. You know, Peyton Manning, people will pay Peyton $100,000 to come in and talk about preparation before opportunity and character and what we have is character. And then you take your picture with him and you go home and you tell everybody he was there. And I guess that's worth $100,000. I can't get away with that. I got to actually produce results, and not just tiny results. They have to be measurable and they have to be massive. Because it would be way too easy for somebody to work with me for a year and say, well, yes, we increased 23% this year. We love Andy. We had a great time working with Andy, and we did increase 23%. Are you going to renew? No, probably not. I'm not sure we couldn't have done that without Andy, but we love Andy. He was great. We loved it. It was great. Now, see, here's the thing. I knew I had to have results that people just looked at and freaked out. I had to help people double and triple and quadruple if anybody was going to take any notice. Last year, I took it was the last 2 years, a mortgage company that had been in business 19 years, to get to $5.4 billion in business, worked with them for 1 year, and in 1 year they went to $11.2 billion. The next year, just last year, they went to $17.4 billion, and I don't know anything about the mortgage industry. Okay? I mean, you know, I work with Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, and I played football in the 6th grade. See, it's easier to do than you think, because what I tell people I do, is I help people compete at a level their competition doesn't know there's a game going on. That's what I do. It's easier to do than you think, because people always compete the same way. Everybody competes the same way. In every industry, they compete the same way. They bring in the same materials. They bring in the same speakers. They do the same thing. There isn't a coach in America, from the NFL to the mini-mites, who at one point during the season doesn't say a version of this to the team on game day. Today I want everything you got. I want every part of you. I want your heart, your mind, your body. I want 100%. And I ain't got to have 100% for the 3 hours you're in the stadium. I haven't got to have 100% for the 60 minutes on the clock. But from the time that ball is snapped until that whistle is blown, if you can give me 100% from the snap to the whistle, we got a great opportunity to win this game. That sounds great, doesn't it? That sounds great. And it, in fact, is true, but there's a flaw in the thinking, and that is that the coach on the other sideline just said the same thing to his team. And so, even if you are better than they are, the best you can usually hope for is to beat them every time by a little bit. Because you have to be good at the fundamentals. You have to be good from the snap to the whistle. But I want to tell you something. If you can figure out how to legitimately compete, not just from the snap to the whistle, but from the whistle to the next snap, while everybody else is just standing around, you'll run them off the field. And this is what we do. By competing in a way that other people do not know there's a game going on. You have an awesome foundation of fundamentals. You have an awesome foundation of training. You have an awesome foundation, your product, scientifically proven. What a vehicle you guys have. I mean, you are already ahead of the game with your vehicle, with your foundation. And yet, you probably still don't know where the difference is made. See, most people and most companies live and die with customer satisfaction. It's hilarious. I work with traditional companies a lot of times, and the first thing I have to say to them is, all right, listen to me. We're going to go in a totally different direction, all right? You know, everybody competes the same way. And yes, I know you're in first place. And yes, I know there's a trajectory that people who are doing really good make happen. But what you have been doing for years is looking at each other and compiling best practices and industry standards on how you do what you do. And the things that you believe have you on this trajectory, and it's a good trajectory. And if you want to stay there, keep doing it. And I'm not saying that you forget it, but I am saying there is a difference that is made when you look the other way, when you understand something totally different that the competition will never understand. And this is why I have to tell you, and this is why I'll say to these traditional businesses, and they've got signs, billboards on the highway. Customer satisfaction is our number one goal here at blah, blah, blah. Here at so-and-so, customer satisfaction is our middle name. And you should see their faces when I tell them, you know, customer satisfaction, it's really just crap. I mean, if this is what you're going after, if this is the high point of everything for you, then there's some stuff you seriously do not understand. Because I want to tell you, the truth is that customer satisfaction is the lowest bar you can possibly hit and still stay in business. I mean, think about it. Nobody ever does, but think about it. Anything less than a satisfied customer, you're in trouble. It's the lowest bar you can possibly hit and stay in business. What is the greatest advertisement? We all know the answer to this. What is it? Word of mouth. Word of mouth is what you really rely on in your business, and what would really fuel your tank in a huge way if you had insane word of mouth. Now let me tell you something. Great word of mouth is so powerful that your competitors cannot possibly traditionally advertise against you. They can't badmouth you and take any flesh. They can't. There's nothing that can happen if your word of mouth is incredible. If your word of mouth is horrible, you can't throw enough money at it to make it disappear. But the word of mouth that you want is this incredible, insane, just over the top enthusiastic kind of word of mouth. You're not after customer satisfaction. Here is a satisfied customer. Hey, we're going to buy a car at so-and-so dealership, and we heard that you bought a car a couple of months ago, and before we go there, we're just going to ask, how everything good there? Yeah. So it was all, the process went good. You're pleased with the price, and oh yeah, it's fine. So no problems or anything? No. There you go. There's your satisfied customer. So when you hear that, are you ready to go and talk to the people at that dealership? No, I mean, you don't dump them, but they don't go to the top of your list either. Okay, but if I go, to you and I say, hey, look, I know that you guys are fixing to buy a car, and I know we don't know each other very well, but our kids play Little League together, and we see, and we just bought that kind of car that Jim said that you guys were looking at, and I'm just telling you, I don't know if you've been down to the Buller dealerships yet, but you have got to. We had such an unbelievable experience. And there's a guy there named Todd. Go to Todd. Tell him I sent you. Tell him my name's Andy. Tell him that Andy sent you, and because we're kind of friends, and in fact, my boys call him Uncle Todd, and I'm like, he's not your uncle, but we just, they loved him. And we went by the dealership there, and they said, are we going to see Uncle Todd? And I'm like, no, we just bought a car there, but I'm just telling you, they are so great. You got to mention, in fact, here, let me call him. I'll call him right now and introduce you to him. You see what I'm talking about? This is insane word of mouth. If you're word of mouth, listen, let me, because so many of you are trying little tricks of advertising. You're trying little tricks of getting your name out there. Let me tell you something. Traditionally advertising is just a penalty you pay. Traditional advertising is a tax you will pay for not being remarkable and creating that word of mouth. All right, so how are you remarkable? What is the difference? See, the difference is you. People think, well, I represent this, I do this, I am a part of this. Let me tell you something. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care what it is that you represent. I don't care what product you have. In reality, the product is you. It is you. And the reason we know this for sure, you want proof, the reason we know this for sure is because you all have been around people and they had the goose that laid the golden egg, and you don't care. You ain't doing it with them. I mean, they could have Oprah Winfrey and the President of the United States to their house for a dinner party, and you ain't going. Okay, but we also know people that they almost do not even have to tell you what's going on. If they're in, you're in. I'm in. They want you to come, you're coming. Okay, well that has nothing to do with advertising or a product or a price. Watch this. How many of you have paid more for something in your life than you had to? You could have gotten it for less, but you chose to pay more. Okay, how many of you have, in your life, you have gone to more trouble to get something than you had to? You could have gotten it online, you could have gotten it across town, but you chose to wait a week and drive 10 miles. You went to more trouble. Do you guys see this? And there was no collusion here. For people who consider themselves fairly intelligent like we do, that seems incredibly stupid. Think about it. No, I could have gotten it for less, but I choose to pay more. Really? It was just like a one-time thing? No, I'll do it for the rest of my life. Really? See, there's one thing that kind of deal has in common, and it has nothing to do with price or product anyway. Everybody competes with price and product. There are some of you who are very concerned about your prices. Don't be. That shouldn't even be a thought in your mind, because there is something that trumps price and product, and that is you. Every single time you have gone and paid more and gone to more trouble, it hadn't been because of a price or a product or a sale. It has been because of somebody. It was a gratefulness you were showing. It was a loyalty you were showing. Yeah, I know Walmart's across the street. Yeah, but I will always go to her shop. I will always. Do you know what she did for my grandmother 14 years ago? I will always go. Yeah, I know there's 7 pharmacies between me and that pharmacy, but we're always going to drive there. And I'll tell you why. My boys are 14 and 17 now, but when my oldest boy was 4, we were over there for something and had to go into that pharmacy for something. And that pharmacist came around the counter. He shook my hand and he stuck out his hand to my 4-year-old son. And he said, "Shake, come on, shake." And Austin stuck his hand out and he said, "Squeeze, son, come on, squeeze." Look me in the eye, look me in the eye. What do we say? "Good to see you. Nice to meet you." And you know what? The second time I took my boy there, he did that too. And I will take my family and I will tell people about that pharmacy and about going there from now to the end of time. Why? Because I now have a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old who can do it. They can do it. And I knew then that nobody was ever going to hire my kid. When he grew up, nobody was ever going to hire my kid because he could fist bump or high five. I had to have a kid who learned how to shake hands like a man, and I couldn't be the only person in town doing it. And that understanding was worth money to me. It is what you become, what you are in the process of becoming, what you understand and are able to explain to others. When I was 19 years old, my parents died. My mom died of cancer. My dad was killed in a car accident. Crazy time in my life. But I've always had the ability to take a bad situation and make it worse. And I did. I ended up literally homeless before that was even a word. 35 years ago, nobody was talking about homeless people, but I was living on the beach. I was sleeping under a pier and in and out of people's garages, which is not safe or smart, but I did. I met this old guy late one night under my pier, scared me to death. But this old guy, we didn't really know where he was from. We'd seen him around town. We never knew where he stayed. We never knew where he went when he left town. We didn't know what was in that suitcase he carried around. We didn't know how old he was. We called him Jones. Not Mr. Jones. He said, "Call me Jones." And so we did. This old man was an amazing old man. He was the first person ever to tell me the truth about myself in a time where I desperately needed it. And when I say that, people go, "What's that mean?" Well, if you meet somebody having a tough time, what do? We give them a McDonald's coupon. We give them $5. We put them on the prayer list. But very rarely do we sit down with them and tell them things about themselves that might make them angry at us. And this is what he did. And you say, "Well, so he made you mad?" Oh yeah, all the time. But where am I going? I'm sleeping under a pier. This is the only guy in my life paying any attention to me. You talk about a know-it-all. I'm 57 now. I wish you'd have had me when I was 23, because I knew everything. I don't know what you were like when you were 23, but I knew everything. I'm surprised NASA, didn't get a call from somebody in Orange Beach, Alabama, and say, "Are you aware we have a kid living on the beach here and he knows everything?" But, I would introduce, somebody to Jones, and then I'd spend the whole time interrupting him. He'd talk and I'd say, "Oh, let me tell you what I think." And he'd talk and I'd say, "Yeah, okay, but I've been thinking." And he'd talk and I'd say, "Okay, but another way you need to think about that." And one day he said, "Hey, stop. You need to be careful with that. That thing can be dangerous. That thinking thing can get you in a lot of trouble." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Most people live their entire lives and never understand you can't always believe everything you think." It was an amazing awakening for me. It was something I've been unpacking for 35 years, and something that was part of the process that helped me understand the difference in knowledge and wisdom. And it was something that helped me understand how to explain things in a way that it would help people empower their own lives. It was also something that eventually helped me understand how to talk to people before we got into something they didn't really want to hear so that they would listen. Because think about it. I mean, years ago, I was going into, I'd go into companies and they didn't really care what I said. It's like, yeah, we're going bankrupt. Just say whatever you want to say. If you can make them happy, that'll be fine with us. We don't care. But as you progress and as you get to the point where now you're coming in and you're talking or working with people who are in first or second place, they really care. And not only do they care, they are sometimes hard to deal with. Because think about going in with Nick Saban or Urban Meyer. They know I played football in the 6th grade, and they know that in their profession, nobody's better than they are. Nobody knows more than they do. So how in the world could anybody, much less me, how could anybody help them? It is a thinking thing. I can do this for you in 2 minutes because I want you, as we roll into this next part, I want you to be ready in a way you have never been ready before. Here we go. I'm going to give you good news and bad news in one quick statement. And that is, you know what you know. Now that's good news because you know a lot. I mean, holy moly, look what you know. You've done what you've done because of what you know. Many of you are just getting started in this business and you have your idea of how you're going to do it because of what you know. And on the outside of this business, you have produced a lot. You know a lot. In fact, you've produced more than the person who introduced you to the business. And so what you know has you in a different place. You know what you know. Well, that's kind of good news, but it's also bad news because, baby, let me tell you something. You only know what you know. Have you ever known something? I mean, you knew it. And you could argue it, and you could win the argument. Every time. And then 6 months later, a year later, you found out, ooh, that was not exactly true. My information was a little incomplete. You ever done that? Yeah, we've all done that. Okay, if you have ever done that in your life, does the possibility exist that something you know now, your information could be incomplete? And you go, well, Andy, of course it's possible that something I know now, my information is incomplete. I agree. But my point is, we don't know what that is, do we? And we don't know how many subjects that may cover. All I'm saying is, there is a wide world beyond what you know that will allow you results that most people would never dare imagine. That old man gave me books. He started me reading. I've always been a Field and Stream Sports Illustrated kind of guy, but he started me reading actual books. The first 3, and they were all biographies, and I hated biographies in school. I don't know why, I saw no point, I suppose, but he gave me 3. The first one was Winston Churchill. The second one was George Washington Carver. The third one was Will Rogers. And I didn't know what to say. I knew they were biographies because all they had was the name on it. And I said, biographies? He said, no. These are adventure stories and mysteries and romances and thrillers. And they're all true. And I went, oh. He said, yeah, they're from the library. When you get through with them, take them back. So I started reading Churchill that night, not really because I wanted to, because I wanted to be able to tell him I was reading it. And I in the first chapter it says, and Winston met this little girl in kindergarten named Clementine, and one day they would be married. And I thought, well, there's the romance. And, every chapter would end with something like, and if he had known what was on the other side of the door, he would have never walked through. And I'm like, oh, gosh, okay. And I'm thinking, well, there's the mystery. And then the World War II stuff starts and the spies and everything. There's the thriller. And I got hooked on these books. And I ended up reading over 200 biographies of these happy, interesting, financially secure, great people. I was reading biographies of great people, which when I say that, it makes me think, do they do biographies of any other kind of people? There's not a loser section at Barnes & Noble, is there? But I would read these books trying to think, what is it about these people? And after 200 books, a lot of things become clear, And I figured this graph, there were 7 things that I saw in these people. I didn't know what to call them. I called them things. But it was curious to me that in every case, it's like every person they only knew 2 or 3 of them, that they had them. Now, we could see all 7 in their lives. I just thought that each person only knew 2 or 3 and was harnessing 2 or 3, and it would be a different 2 or 3. But I remember thinking, what happens to somebody who knows all 7? What would happen to a person who knows all 7 of these things? What would happen to a child whose parents know all 7 and teach these 7 things? And again, I didn't know what they were. I called them things. But I finally figured out these weren't 7 characteristics. They weren't 7 habits. They weren't 7 ideas. They weren't mine. Any moron could have read 200 books. I finally figured out these were 7 principles. Because as I was watching them, I was realizing these are working every time. These are working every time. I mean, it's just hilarious to me to see. And that's the principle. Principles work every time. Have you ever thought of that? I mean, when's the last time you had something in your hands that worked every time? And principles work every time. And they work whether you know them or not. How about that? They work whether you know them or not. Have you heard ignorance of the law is no excuse? Okay, well, ignorance of principle is no protection from the consequences of violating that principle just because you didn't know it. In other words, it's important that we really dig in and learn principles and dig in more and get a deeper understanding of these principles. So I'm going to give you 7 of them, and I'm going to wheel right through them in a heartbeat, but it's going to be up to you to unpack these over the next several years or several weeks or however long you decide to do it. These 7 became the basis of my book, The Traveler's Gift, which is a story, and so that was the basis of that. And it's amazing that a lot of the stuff I have learned about these 7 principles, I learned after I wrote The Traveler's Gift. So here they are. Let's just go through them really, really quickly. And I think, I used to hate to do a television interview about this book because they would say, well, what are the 7 principles? And, you only got 3 minutes on Good Morning America. And so, when they say, what are the principles? If you tell the principles, people are like, oh, yeah, okay, well, I heard that. Because they're not groundbreaking. The groundbreaking part is in the understanding. You can have knowledge of a principle. You can know how to use it. But until you develop the wisdom around that principle to understand how to use it in different contexts and when it can be used, I mean, everybody knows these, but nobody knows these. Okay? So I'm going to wheel through them really quickly, and I'm going to give you one thing about each of them that I think that people kind of mistake. The first one is responsibility. We hear about that all the time. You can't watch television or listen to sports news or watch a game without hearing responsibility. But most people do not understand its power or how to harness it. Because responsibility has 2 distinct extremes. that people believe. One extreme, people believe that until these people accept responsibility for where they are, these people are never going to be able to. And then the other extreme is, but it's not their fault. Don't you understand where they're from and what their mama was like? And if you had a mother like their mother, right? Okay? Neither of these extremes really understand responsibility. Because responsibility doesn't have anything to do with blaming people or making people feel bad. Responsibility has to do with hope and control. And who among us doesn't want to have hope for a greater future we can control? Who doesn't want that? But you know, if you blame your mama or your daddy or the weather or the economy or the company or you blame the president or, you know, there isn't a lot of hope there because there's no control. I mean, if I've gotten into a place in my life and it really is my wife's fault, I mean, I don't know about you, I can't control my wife. What are we going to do about my wife? I mean, if I'm in this horrible situation and it really is the fault of the President of the United States, I might as well jump off a cliff. What am I going to do about the President of the United States today, whoever the President happens to be? What am I going to do? But if I could look in a mirror and I could say, you know, I've had some crazy things happen in my life and I couldn't control any of them. I've had some tragedies happen and I couldn't control any of them. But I've made choices in response to those crazy things that have led my life right down a path to a place I don't like. If I can understand I can make choices that would lead me to a place I don't like, that's great news. Right? Because if I can understand and believe I can make choices that lead me to a place I don't like, doesn't it just make logical sense that I could also make choices that would lead me to a place I do like? So the game becomes make better choices. That's the game. And that's what the other 6 decisions, the other 6 principles are about. The second one is seeking wisdom. There's a difference in wisdom and knowledge. People default to knowledge, but we live in a society that is awash in knowledge. Wisdom is still pretty rare. Do you know somebody who they are so smart and they have so many degrees and yet they don't have the sense to get in out of the rain and they can't find a job? Look, there's so many people like that, it's a cliche. They have vast stores of knowledge. Wisdom? Not so much. What we are after is wisdom. What is wisdom? It is a deep understanding of principle. You know, any 12-year-old has the knowledge and the physical and mental ability to learn how to drive a car. I mean, every 12-year-old you and I know, we could teach them how to drive a car. But if we taught them how to drive a car, we wouldn't flip them the keys and say, have a great weekend. Because they don't have the wisdom to apply that knowledge in a consistent manner and in proper context. Wisdom is advanced by being around wise people. You know, your mama was right. Who you hang around really does matter. There isn't a parent in here who isn't desperately concerned about the kids your kids hang out with, right? Because you know your kid's going to turn out just like them. Well, what age does that cease to be a factor in our life? 21, 32, 55? You know the answer. We walk, we talk, we eat, we vote, we earn like the people we hang with. We turn out just like them. Average people compare themselves to other people. They look around, how are they doing? How are they doing? Average companies compare themselves to other companies. This is why they're average. Incredible achievers in any frame, incredible achievers manage to compare themselves to their potential. Which, what is that? Well, I don't know, but when you get close to it, it increases. Wisdom is advanced by what you watch, what you listen to, what you read. And what you don't watch. And what you don't listen to and what you don't read. My boys came to me not too long ago and they said, Dad, okay if we watch this movie tonight? It's Friday night. We're just going to stay up and watch movies. Okay, we watch this one? And I looked at it and I said, yeah. Yeah, you can watch it. I was like, all right. And if you want to. They turn around. Okay, Dad, what does that mean? What does that mean? And I said, well, it's your life. You know, and you got to decide how you spend your time, what you do, what you put in your mind. And I said, you know, as far as movies and books and stuff, hey, this is just kind of typical. I said, look, what you're going to find in your life, and this is where a lot of people trip up, guys. What you're going to find in your life is there are some things you should not watch, and you should not read, and you should not listen to. You should get away from it. You should not, okay? And then there are some things that whether you really want to or not, you should watch. And you should listen, and you should read, and you should think about it, and you should put it in your mind. I said, and then we have the movie you asked me about tonight. It's kind of just nothing. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just kind of nothing. It's just kind of, you're not swimming upstream. You're not piling downstream. You're just treading water. You remember, guys, when we canoed the Blackwater River? Yes, sir. Remember swimming? We'd stop on the sandbars and we'd swim upstream. How hard that was to swim upstream? Yes, sir. Remember how easy it was to just let go and float downstream? Yes, sir. What happened when you tread water? We kind of floated downstream. Right. So sometimes people think they're doing nothing, and what they're really doing is aiming at nothing. And they're going to hit it at some point in their life. And it'll be a big surprise. And so you always want to make sure, if you care, that you swim upstream in what you watch, what you read, what you listen to. You know, the third principle, skip it or do it last. No, I think the fourth one, I will have a decided heart. This is important for you because I think more people fail at what they do because of an undecided heart than for any other reason. You know what an undecided heart is, don't you? People have a decision to make, and they think about it, and they think about it, and then they'll talk to their friends about it, and then they'll look it up on the internet, and then they'll make the decision. Then when they make the decision, they kind of step back and they talk to their friends about whether they should have made the decision or not, and they'll look at the internet again, and then they'll take the decision back. And then when they take it back, they talk to their family about whether they should have took it back. And then they talk to their friends about what their family says. And then they look at the internet again. And life becomes this ongoing state of analysis. Analysis can be a good thing, but in our society today, it has become its own boogeyman. You know, analysis has become its own industry. I mean, there are people, they do nothing but they'll come in and they'll analyze for you. Be careful hiring a consultant without a deadline, baby. They know they get paid as long as they're analyzing, okay? But analysis has a purpose that people forget. And the purpose of analysis is to come to a conclusion. That's the purpose of it. It's not to continue to analyze. So many people continue to analyze after they made a decision, And when it comes down to actually doing what they decided to do, they're analyzing so much they ain't got any energy to do what they decided to do. And then when everything fails and falls down around their feet, what do they blame it on? Faulty analysis. It's crazy. See, you do not have the ability. You were not created with the ability to gather enough information to make right decisions every time. You cannot possibly do it unless you can predict the future. And the psychic network, they went out of business. You'd think they'd have seen that coming, right? But unless you can predict the future, you can't possibly gather enough facts to make a right decision. You weren't created that way. You were created to move. You were created to make a decision with the facts available and then go about making that decision right. The decisions that you make will be a small metaphor for your life in general. Do you know every twist and turn your life is going to take now? No, you do not. Are you going to quit today? No, you are not. It's crazy what people expect in their in their businesses or their families. I mean, for those of you who drove here, I mean, tomorrow afternoon, I guess you're going to get in your car and you're going to drive home. But you're not going to get in your car and slam it in drive and hit the accelerator and kick back with a paperback. I mean, you know there's going to be twists and turns. Thanks very much. You know there's going to be twists and turns along the way. There's going to be traffic. There's going to be a detour. But, you know, think about it. You're not going to hit a detour and go, well, I didn't know it was going to be like this. They didn't tell me there was going to be a detour on the way home. Well, I'm never going home. I'm never going home again. I'm just never going home. I mean, how stupid would that be? And yet people do it in other parts of their life. The purpose of analysis is to come to a conclusion. A decided heart. Listen, people want to follow people with a decided heart. The Bible even talks about this. The Bible, I mean, and if you don't want to think Bible, we'll think a king. Okay, because King Solomon wrote, quit listening to teaching that goes against what you already know is true. I mean, 3,000 years ago, they knew it was stupid, okay? And so all I'm saying is, if you want to lead, if you want to move, children want parents who know where they're going. They want parents with a decided heart. You want to be married to somebody who knows where they're going. People want to get into business with somebody who knows where they're going. Okay, this is leadership. I mean, I'm sorry, John, but a lot of leadership does have to do with setting yourself on fire and running down the street because people will follow you just to watch you burn. Just go somewhere. Number 5, today I will choose to be happy. Happy is probably a bad word for this. I think grateful is probably a better word. I think happy is what we're after. Joyful is what we're after. Life's joy can be a constant. Happy kind of comes and goes. But grateful can be a constant as well. I don't know that you can choose in a moment to be happy and have it happen. I think it's probably crazy to think I can go, wow, 5 seconds ago, I chose to be happy. And now I really am. I mean, that's kind of stupid, all right? But I do believe we can choose to be grateful. I do believe that we can sit down and actively write down 50 things we have to be grateful for, and when we get up from the table, we'll feel differently. I do believe that we can stop and grab hold of ourselves and shake ourselves by the shoulders and remember that as bad as things are sometimes, I think you can remember that your family has enough food to eat today. And your family has a roof over their head today. And why is that important to remember? Because there's several billion people on this planet who will go to bed tonight without either. And what did we do to deserve being born in this part of the country? What do we do? There's tons to be grateful for. And when you are grateful, you become a person others want to be around. See, when I said the product is you, this one might be the most crucial of the lot. Here's a skill. I'm going to give you a skill. Now, this is a skill, not a talent. It's a skill. A talent, that's like Josh Groban's voice. How do you get that? I don't know. You know, Josh Groban can carry a tune. I can carry a tune. But it's two different sounds coming out of our mouth, right? Juggling is a skill. You don't know how to juggle? I can teach you to juggle in 5 minutes. If you understand the pattern, if you can throw something from one hand to the other, you can juggle. Okay, but if you juggle for a week, you'll be better at it. You juggle for a month, you'd be great. Okay, so a skill is something you can learn and practice and get better. What I'm about to teach you is a skill. It is perhaps the most important skill you could ever develop in building your business. You ready? My boys know that this skill is more important than a college degree, by far. This skill is more important than A's in school. I knew that if my boys could develop this skill, everything else in life would be gravy. It would be easy. Here, you ready? Have I oversold it enough? Here it is. Smile while you talk. Now listen, I didn't say smile a lot. I didn't say greet each day with a big old cheesy grin. I said smile while you talk. Most people don't do that. Most people don't even tell jokes smiling. You watch them. And so what I'm saying is to smile while you talk. And listen, take 90 seconds a day for 3 weeks. You're probably in a bathroom 9 times a day. Probably take 10 seconds every time you're in a bathroom by yourself and talk to yourself in the mirror. Because I want you to see how you look. Because I want you to look like you want to look, okay? Because I'm not telling you to act like Bozo the Clown or stretch your lips over your ears or look like a goon, okay? All I'm telling you is get your countenance up. Get your eyebrows up. Get the corners of your mouth up. And smile while you talk. Because I'm going to tell you something. You smile while you talk. I mean, people can't help it. They can't help it. And then you get good at it. You get good at it, start throwing this one in there. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, look at them, they're nodding. They don't know why they're nodding, but they're nodding. People that are smiling and nodding, they can't say no to nothing. They'd like to, but they can't say no to nothing. They can't get their head to work that way. This is huge. This is huge. If you want to be a person that other people want to be around, you want to create value in the lives of others. Listen, we took a national real estate company and took one of their states, right in the middle of their 49 brothers and sisters, right in the middle of their competition, worked with them for a year, and they increased their sales 400%. And I don't know anything about real estate. And in fact, I was just asking them, and I'll tell you how we did it. It was a simple thing of knowing what value is for people, okay? Because I asked them, I said, how does this work? Well, it's, commission, and you sell it, you make money. You don't sell it, you don't make money. But there's that listing thing, okay? If I'm a real estate agent and I list a product, if I have somebody sign a contract that I will list their property, and if I sell it, I get 100% of the commission. But if I list the product and somebody else sells it, then I still get 50% of the commission because I was the listing agent. You get it? So when I heard that, I said, okay, this is easy. We just list all the properties. And they said, well, that's easier said than done. But that's basically what we did. We had everybody selling for us. And it's easy if you know why people list their properties. I mean, think about it. if you're going to sell your property, how do you decide who gets to list your property? Do you take a computer program and take a graph of the 3 month totals of the Tri-County area and then take it down to 10 real estate people and personally interview them? And then, do you do that? No. I'll tell you exactly who gets to list your house. Your buddy who sells real estate. And we say, well, so really you're going to let him list your house? Yeah, I am. So he's like the best in the area? No. But he's on a hot streak now. Not really. But you're going to let him list your property? Listen, I hadn't got any choice. I wouldn't dare list my property with anybody else. This is the guy that 2 years ago at 3 o'clock in the morning, he came over to my house and kept my kids when I took my husband to the hospital, and he woke my kids up, made them breakfast, got them. I wouldn't dare list my property with anybody else. Oh. So what you're saying is that 2 years ago at 3 o'clock in the morning, this guy was competing for your business at a level the other real estate people in the area didn't know a game was going on. Now, if you can understand how that happens inadvertently, you can understand how you can create value on purpose. And it's not giving product away. It's not giving money away. It is you. Sometimes it can be as simple as being the only person who brightens up when they walk in the room. Remember Norm from Cheers? Guy hated his life, but every night he was at the end of that bar. Why? Because that bar had cheaper beer than anywhere else in Boston? No. It was the only place in that poor guy's life that every time he walked through the door, everybody in there went, Norm, it's Norm. The vast majority of the people that you see every day in the grocery store, in the school line to pick up the kids, in the gym, at church, in the bank, the vast majority you see every day, it has been years since any of them have gone in anywhere, including their own homes, and had anybody outwardly enthusiastic that they were there. And you think they won't remember you when you're the only face in their life. Then when you pass them on the street, or you see them across the thing at church, or you see them in the other line at the bank, you go, hey. Find out some stuff about people. Hey, people sometimes wonder, well, why didn't anybody want to talk to me? It's because you're all over them, because they know what you're going to talk about. I mean, if you can just go to somebody, if you know something about them and you can say, hey, how's it going? Everything good? They say, hey, I was thinking about you the other day. How's your grandmother? Your grandmother good? Because I was just thinking about that the other day and just knew she was in the hospital. I mean, just talk to people. Be their friends. Nobody else is asking about their grandmother. Number 6, forgiveness. Forgiveness. It's not a knighthood. It's not something we bestow upon some lucky person that comes crawling and begging and crying. See, I can't find any book or any expert to tell me that for one person to forgive another person, this person has to ask for it or deserve it or even be aware that it's happening. See, forgiveness is a decision, not an emotion. We treat it like an emotion, which is why it drags us around like a dog on a leash. But if you remember Psychology 101, forgiveness is a decision. If you remember the Psychology 101, emotions follow decisions. So if we make good ones, those emotions will follow along, and eventually we may have to make them again. We have to make that decision again. We may have to make it 9 times or 7 times 70 or whatever it is. But you make that decision. And sometimes people say, what, they're going to get away with it? Look, nobody's getting away with anything. Don't misunderstand forgiveness and trust. Forgiveness is about us. Trust is about them. Do you forgive somebody who lies to you? Yeah. Do you continue to believe everything they say? No. It's a big difference in forgiveness and trust. And one person, everyone in here needs to forgive. I'm just telling you this, boy, I see this over and over, and that's ourselves. All the people who have offended me in my life, man, nobody has ever offended me as much as I have offended me or disappointed me. I've disappointed myself so much, and I knew everything I'd done. I couldn't even lie about it. Right? I mean, how do you get away with that? And just we think we're hiding it, but just like dogs can sense fear in people, people can sense bitterness in other people. They don't always know what they're sensing, but they don't do business with it. They don't stay married to it forever. They don't date it again. It's tough to fight an enemy that has a fort in your head. The only thing you can do is destroy the fort. Forgive yourself, get by yourself, lay down the whip and stick you've been beating yourself over the back and neck and shoulders with about what you didn't do and what you haven't done and what you said you'd do that you didn't, and start again. The last one, or number 7, is I will persist without exception. Without exception. See, people have heard I will persist, but they haven't heard without exception. Without exception, when would you have to persist without exception? Well, you'd have to persist without exception when you kind of came to the conclusion that it can't be done. That's the only time you'd have to persist without exception. It can't be done. And so in essence, persisting without exception means you find a way where there is no way. How does that happen? I'll tell you how it doesn't happen. It does not happen with the 3 defaults. People say, well, we're out of money. We ain't got any money. If we had money. Number 2, well, we're out of time. Look at the calendar. We're out of time. Number 3, well, we just don't have the right leadership. Listen, you're not lacking leadership. You're not lacking money. You're not lacking time. You're only lacking one thing, and that is an idea. One idea. You and I both know we've seen one idea save millions of lives. We've seen one idea make billions of dollars. And one idea will move you from where you are to where you want to be. How do you get the idea? I don't know, but it ain't by sitting on the couch eating ice cream and watching TV, I tell you that. Ideas are a function of adrenaline. You got to get moving. But I'm so discouraged. I don't know what to do. If I had an idea, I would do something, but I don't know what to do. I hear people say that all the time. I don't know what to do. I just don't. See, what do people do when they don't know what to do? Nothing. That's what they do. And so what you have to do is exert a little wisdom. The quality of your answers. You're looking for an answer? Okay, the quality of your answers can only be determined by the quality of your questions. You want to have good answers? Ask good questions. You want to get bad answers? Keep asking questions like, why can't I do this? Why can't I do it? Why do I not have any energy? Why can't I lose weight? I mean, keep asking those questions because your subconscious goes right to work on them, baby. But you ask good questions, your subconscious will go to work with good answers. You want to get up and move? They can be silly, but they can be good. Because when I get to a place where I don't know what to do, I am prone to do nothing. I know that. And so my question is, Andy, I know you don't know what to do, but if you did know what to do, what would you do right now? I know you don't know who to call, but if you did know who to call, who would you call right now? I know you don't know who to talk to, but if you did know who to talk to, who would you go talk to right now? You got to get moving. Don't ever think that we're out of ideas. We are not out of ideas, ever. Don't forget. Don't forget. We put men on the moon before anybody thought to put wheels on luggage. There are plenty of ideas. Hey, before we get out of here, I want to give you a gift. Here, text this or write down this text number, 33444. 33444. It doesn't sound like a text number. That's the text number. And if you'll write down the word, you text that number, and in the message box, put the word inspired, INSPIRED. I'll send you free. It's an entrepreneurial course that I created that I can do with you kind of interactively. And if you'll text that, I'll send that link to you right away. Last thing I want to tell you is that everything you do matters. Every move you make, every action you take matters. Not just for you, not just for your family, not just for your hometown. Have you heard of the butterfly effect? The butterfly effect was the doctoral thesis written in 1963 by Edward Lorenz and presented to the New York Academy of Sciences, and it was laughed out of the place because it was crazy. Butterfly effect stated a butterfly could flap its wings on one side of the world and set molecules of air in motion that moved other molecules of air that somewhere along the line would create weather patterns. It was ridiculous, but it was interesting. And so it hung around forever in myth and urban legend and comic books and bad movies until finally, physics professors in the 90s proved the butterfly effect was accurate and viable, and it worked every time. And not just with butterflies, but with any form of moving matter, including people. And they gave it the status of a law. It's like the law of gravity. The butterfly effect is now known as the law of sensitive dependence upon initial conditions. And if you look at great people in our world today, the people who have accomplished great things, you can reverse engineer their life very easily, and you can take it back to a moment that somebody flapped their butterfly wing in the life of that person. Then you can take that person back and see where somebody flapped a butterfly. For me, mine was a little African-American lady, my 8th grade English teacher, who I have a big picture of up in my office. Mrs. McLeod was the first lady to flap her butterfly wings in my life in the 8th grade and say, "You can write. You can write." Now, I never got to the point where I was the best writer in my senior English class. But that little lady telling me what I could do has proven out with several New York Times bestsellers. What can you do with your wings? Everything you do matters. Not just for you, not just for LifeVantage, not just for your hometown or your family. Everything you do matters to all of us and for all time. There are generations yet unborn whose very lives will be shifted and shaped by what you do this afternoon and tonight and tomorrow and the next day, because everything you do matters. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you.